birch bark. Now you can use fire starter. Let it be just for a minute. The reason why Hey, what's going on everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today's video is going to be another instructional video. We're going to be touching on how to light and maintain a fire inside of your portable wood stove for hot tenting. I know this might seem a little elementary and a little strange. I am actually very surprised on how many people are commenting and questioning how to get these stoves burning and how to maintain a good burn and what to watch out for. So stay tuned and we'll get right into it. Alright, so before we jump into the tent and take a look at the stove and start talking about how to light the stove, we got to take a step back. We got to go to wood collection. The first thing you're going to need for a substantial fire is a saw and an axe. You do not need the saw and axe that I have. In fact, you really don't even need one depending on your area, how much elbow grease and how much work you really want to put into it. You can collect wood by hand and break it by hand. It's just going to be a lot easier if you've got a nice axe. Here I have a 20-inch small forest axe. Very small, very compact, very, very strong and useful. For the saw, I've got the Boreal 24 saw. The reason why I choose this saw is because it simply packs down very small. It has replaceable blades. It cuts on the push and the pull, making it a very strong, useful tool for me. Talking about wood collection, in this forest today I am burning only softwood, so I'm not even going to touch on hardwood. The main difference between the two, other than literally the difference being softwood and hardwood, the difference in burn, softwood is going to burn very hot, very fast. It's not going to leave a very strong coal base, and it's going to spit a lot of sparks and embers, which could melt your tent. Hardwood is going to be a more dense wood. It's going to burn for a longer time. A slower burn is possible with that wood, and it's going to leave a coal base, and it is very unlikely to spit embers and sparks, thus for making a cleaner burn and not burning your tent. Okay, so now that we've covered the basis of wood that we can and will be burning in the fire, let's talk about the wood stove. So this is a Pamali X-Tie stove. It is a packable titanium wood stove, meaning it literally folds down and comes apart to about 2.5 inches in thickness. This chimney pipe also rolls up very small. So this is a hiking, packable, portable wood stove. Very important, it does have glass in it, which means you want to start your fire relatively slow and let the temperature build up. That way in the wintertime you don't shock the glass and crack it. Glass is going to be a benefit if you're learning how to burn in your wood stove, because you can literally see what's going on inside of the stove. Often people that touch and fiddle around with the stove too much, you're not going to be letting the stove actually do its thing and find that stability in the burn. The proper oxygen, the proper wood source, the proper flame to get a really good burn. And then you also need to start touching on the damper and the draft, which I'm going to cover in this video. So right now, this titanium stove is cold to the touch. There's no fire in there. So we're going to get a fire going in here from scratch. Starting off, I'm going to talk about a little bit how we're going to get this fire going. And this is the whole purpose of this video. So like I said, today I'm using softwood. These are pine limbs. These are bone dry. Absolutely dry. The bark is off them. They were not on the ground. They're off of a tree. That's the snap that you want to hear. They're not bending, they're snapping. These are going to burn ferociously hot, very violent, very fast. I want to start with this. Two reasons. One, it's going to get our fire going very easily. And two, it's going to show something that you should never accomplish, hopefully, which is a nasty whomping sound in the stove. I'm hoping to catch it on camera today. It's when the draft and the damper are wide open and the fire is burning so ferociously. What it does is the stove is like a set of lungs. It needs to breathe. What happens is it's breathing so fast and so heavy that it's actually expelling smoke through the draft holes into the tent when it's trying to re-inhale. So it's exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale. Think about your stove as a set of lungs, and it'll actually puff smoke back into your tent. Very dangerous if you're sleeping, because your tent will fill up full of smoke. So hopefully we'll be able to capture that. So starting the fire, what I like to do is smaller than your pinky in diameter. small. So we got pencil lead, we got pencil, and then we've got like thumb. And then up from there, you can go with wrist size, arm size, logs, whatever you want to do. So think of like pencil lead. So this is a little bit larger than pencil lead, but that's kind of what we're going for. And then go up to pencil diameter, like a writing pencil, pencil crayon. And then go to thumb, which is kind of where this is at actually. So you'll see that this stuff is breaking incredibly easy. Like I said, it's very, very dry. Very, very good firewood. So I'm going to get a little pile of thumbs, a little pile of pencils, and I'll just mix that in with a pencil lead size. I'm going to get a healthy amount of this, and the reason being is once you start your fire, you are a slave to the fire. You don't want to be running away and gathering up firewood. Prep is always key. Put all of your effort into prep. Once you've got everything ready, then light your wood stove. Because if you're off gathering firewood when you're trying to get your stove going, you're going to be back and forth, that cycle of just feeding the fire, trying to get it going, this and that. I like using a method of set it and forget it. Hopefully by the end of this video, you'll be able to set it and forget it and have a fire going every single time. So I'm going to gather up some of this, and then we're going to start loading the stove, and I'm going to walk you through how to start it and things to do and things to look out for. All right, so loading the wood stove. There was a fire burning in here earlier. As I said, this stove is cold to the touch. So there's no embers in here, nothing going on there. I'm just gonna move that piece of wood in there. We'll leave that in there. What I'm gonna do is show you guys how much wood you need to get in there to start it. You wanna really try and fill the firebox as much as you can. Not too much that you're gonna snuff it out, but enough that, you know, you're about halfway at 3/4 full of wood before you throw in your fire starter. Now, as I'm loading this stove, I'm starting with my smallest pieces of wood, back to our pencil and pencil lead diameters, on the bottom. We want those on the very bottom, and then we're going to go up to the second size, which would be our pencil size, so on and so forth, until you get to these guys that are like thumb diameter. You just cram those in right on top. The reason for that is fire burns up. Sometimes it goes down, sometimes it goes sideways, but fire goes up, flames go up. So we want our smallest tinder on the bottom, our pencil lead, our thumb, and then we step up to our logs once it's actually burning of usual wrist size diameter. And then from there you get a coal base. You can put in wet logs, damp logs, split wood, round wood, whatever you want to do. So we'll get this guy 3/4 full to half full, and we're pretty much there right now. You guys will notice I'm not putting these in here in any particular order. I'm just cramming them in there. If you put them in all the same direction, you can cause a block where the flame can't get up through the wood. So you really want to scatter it all over the place. So there's a lot of air gaps. There's a lot of areas where those flames can kind of dance through and go up through the wood and burn. Another thing I do want to mention is this stove does not have a baffle installed, meaning the fire is going straight up the pipe. It's not having to come forward around the baffle and then go up. Going straight out. If you use a baffle, it is drastically going to change the burn and the way the stove operates. It's going to be a little bit different. It's kind of like a small carburetor. You really need to dial it in. Every stove is different. Every baffle is different. It gets a little complicated. So now that we've got that going, I'm going to start it with birch bark. The reason why I'm going to use birch bark is it's readily available pretty much all over the world. And that way we have an even playing ground of what fire starter did you use. Birch bark. Now you can use fire starters, the little cubes, cotton balls and Vaseline, wax based, whatever you want to use as a fire starter. Go ahead and do that. What I'm doing is I'm cramming that underneath all of the wood. So all the wood's on top, the birch bark underneath, everything is set. I'm going to make sure my draft is open. That is the closed position. That is the up position on this stove. And the damper, and I'm going to make sure the draft is wide open as well. That way the stove is on max full acceleration. Once we've got everything ready, there's nothing on the side that's going to catch fire or burn. We're ready to get that lit. Before I light it, I'll give you guys a look inside there so you can see how my layout looks. All right, so having a look inside the stove, you'll see my ball of birch bark on the bottom, and then the scattered mess of small twigs stepping up to larger wood. This is the kind of chaos that I'm talking about. There's no order, there's no uniformity. Cram it in there, tinder on the bottom, you're ready to go for a flame. All right, so I've got my matches. I'm going to throw a match in there, get the fire going. One thing I will say is our settings are wide open, maximum. We're going to be adjusting that rather quickly, and I'll show you what we're talking about. We'll do this real time so you can see how the stove reacts. So I'm just going to light this birch bark, and this should go up rather quickly. It's fairly dry stuff. And the beauty with birch bark is even when it's wet, the natural oils still burn. So we've got that lit, we've got our smoke rolling out. I'm going to shut the door. Now is a good time to wipe off your glass from the outside if there's any dust on it or anything. The blackness on the inside, we're not even going to pay attention to right now. Sure, you could scrub it. The stove will clean it off automatically. I left it dirty on purpose because there was birch bark in there before. The stove got a little bit cooler in temperature, which built up with this little soot. Once the stove gets burning properly, it will clean itself off. I don't know if you can hear that. That is what we do not want to hear. This is when I would adjust, but I'm not going to because I want you to see the smoke that is leaking out of the stove right now. Normally, I would damp it down, slow the burn down. I'll give you guys a closer look. All right, so I'm really glad we caught that on camera. Watch what happens. Listen very carefully. It went away. Just like that. No more smoke is coming out. All I did was slide the draft half shut. Let's open it up all the way. See the smoke? Smoke seeping out of the holes all over the stove. Then we damp it down. Steady burn. Open it up again. That sound is dangerous. It's a killer. It'll overheat your stove. It'll fill your tent full of smoke. You don't ever want to hear that. All right, guys, now I know the shot's a little far away. The stove is not what I want you to see. I want you guys to look at the pipe. Right now, the stove is doing that womping thing. I'm gonna slide the draft shut and watch what happens to the smoke. Just wait a minute. The stove is still in its startup process, so it's still going to smoke a fair bit because all the wood's combusting, and it hasn't really turned into a coal base yet, but you could probably see the difference there. It went from a really strong, thick white smoke to almost clear. If I open it up all the way, we're pretty much past the stage of that womping. It's still remaining clear. And the stove is not puffing smoke inside of the tent. It will do that again if I cram a whole bunch of really, really hot burning wood in there and let it flare up like that again. It'll continuously do it. It's not just the startup process. So right now the stove is still on its maximum setting. Draft is open, damper's wide open. If I slam the damper shut, watch what happens to the smoke. Instant smoke. The stove is struggling. Now what that does for the fire inside is it's going to slow the fire down really, really low. It's also going to hold in a maximum amount of heat. So this is ideal when you're cooking, not all the way shut, but about 3/4, halfway shut to hold in a lot of the heat and still burn. Now if I open up the damper all the way, it'll go back to clear. That's wide open. And you'll see how responsive these small titanium stoves can be. All right, guys, so here we are, the draft and damper wide open. I have not added any more wood. And if you listen, and you can see a little bit of smoke is starting to puff out right down here. It's not in its startup process. Anytime you hear that, you can mitigate that two ways. You can slide the draft shut, or you can slow the burn down by closing the damper just a little bit. About a quarter of the way. There we've got a combination of the draft closed a little bit and the damper closed down a little bit. When the fire starts burning, very, very, very clean, very stable. Just like it is right now. You'll notice this spot is starting to burn off. You're starting to see the flames. That is going to happen to the entire glass panel. The steady heat and the clean burn is going to burn off all of that creosote by itself. It's going to come very, very clean, but it does take an hour or two to accomplish that. So just be patient and let your stove talk to you, and it's going to tell you, it's going to show you what it wants and what it needs. Okay, so this has been burning now for about 15, maybe 20 minutes, and we haven't added any wood to the stove since startup. I'm going to open the door. Keep in mind the damper and the draft are both about half shut. Open the door very slowly. You don't want to rip it open because these stoves build fire and basically combust on a vacuum system called draw. It's breathing, remember this is a set of lungs, so it's breathing in fresh air, it's pulling it in like a vacuum. It's combusting and burning, and it's spewing out through this hot pipe, just like a hot air balloon. It's got to go up very cleanly. It's a vacuum. So you want to open this very slowly, and no smoke is coming out of the door. No smoke. We can take one of these round pieces and load it in. Don't disturb the coals a lot. Just pop it in, close the door. Let it be just for a minute. The reason why I say don't stir your coals, a lot of people want to do that. They want to poke and prod at the coals, but they don't want a tent with 1,000 holes burned into it. Don't poke the coals, just leave them be. Put your wood in, drop it down. The more you stir and disturb those coals, the more embers are going to go up the pipe, and they're going to float down, land on your tent, and burn holes. Not only that, you're going to create cold spots. The coals are the base. It's elevating the wood off of the bottom of the stove, and it's very, very hot. It wants to burn. So as soon as that nice dry piece of wood goes in there, we did not make any changes, no adjustments. It's already burning absolutely steady. Might be a little hard to see because the glass hasn't totally cleaned itself off. The other side is starting to clean itself off, the back side of the stove, but this side, a little bit dirty still. Didn't adjust anything. It's burning very, very, very hot. This thing's throwing a ton of heat. And it's stable. It's totally stable. The pipe is absolutely clear. There's no smoke coming out of there. I just loaded wood. It should smoke, but it's not. I've used this stove 100+ times. So many camping trips. I've learned what this stove wants exactly. I know the sounds. I know the sights. I know the smells. You're going to have to learn that when hot tenting, because when the tent's pitch black, and let's say you don't have a light on and there's no glass on your stove, you need to know what's going on inside of that stove by the sound, by the smell, by the sight. What's going on? Is the titanium glowing really cherry hot in a strange spot? Is the pipe cherry hot all the way up, which you do not want? To get away from that, use the damper to damp the fire down, to bring that redness down. There is going to be a section of pipe that is going to be red hot. It's okay because titanium has a very high melting point. It is not going to melt. Even this thin foil pipe is not going to melt. It's very, very, very hot in order to melt. But what happens is if your pipe gets too red hot and it goes through the stove jack, it's going to emit enough heat that's going to bridge itself to your tent material and your stove jack, and things are going to start to melt and fall apart, and your tent is going to not be usable after that. Guaranteed. So You usually want to keep that redness down to about 10 inches, maybe 12 inches if it's red at all. It's totally normal for these stoves to glow cherry hot, the stove body. They're thicker titanium, they can handle the heat no problem. And I do want to mention something because I know there's so many people screaming at the TV right now saying, this stove's riddled full of cracks, it's holes, I can see fire and all the little cracks and holes and crevices, it's not airtight. No, it doesn't need to be. It actually burns a lot better where it's not airtight. The reason for those holes and cracks are two reasons. One, it's for the efficiency. It's part of the actual design of the stove to burn that way. It has a floating draft, and what I mean by floating is if I were to shut that damper down, shut that draft all the way down, this stove can still burn without emitting smoke into the tent. You'll notice there's no smoke leaking out of the stove right now. It still has draw, it's still breathing through all the little cracks and crevices and holes. It's a safety feature, it's a design feature, and you can't have a folding stove without cracks and crevices. It just doesn't work. So these cracks and these holes are actually going to help your stove burn that much better. You are not going to find a packable hot tent stove that is airtight. They don't exist. They don't exist for a reason, because they're not efficient and they don't work well. So open that back up. Now that we're smoking out the forest, we'll get that flame kicking back up here again. And it's very, very easy to operate these stoves. You just have to put in the time and learn and sit back and watch what the little minute changes do to your particular stove. All right, everybody, I hope I covered all of the bases on how to start, how to operate, the functions of your stove, how to get the stove lit, how to maintain the fire, things to look out for, sight, smell, all of that stuff comes into play with your wood stoves. If they're inside of a tent, such as mine right now, it is shielded from any wind. That is what you want. If you notice the wind is blowing in through the door of your tent, it can actually blow smoke right through the stove and it will smoke out your tent. Close the door down, point your door in the opposite direction. There's a lot of things that you can do. You can put up a reflector wall, that way it's not blowing smoke in there. It's very rare that that happens, but these are just little things you want to watch out for. And just practice, practice, practice. Light your wood stove in your backyard. Go camp out in the backyard for the night, maybe 2 nights, and just play with it. Use different kinds of wood. Use split wood, round wood. They totally burn different. Split wood is going to have more sharp edges that the flames can grab onto and burn quicker and ignite faster. Round wood, the flames are going to hit that wood and it's going to go around. Picture your fist, the flame is going around. So it needs to burn out very slowly and very methodically up and around that log. It's not just going to burst into flames like split wood would or small pieces of kindling. So play around with your stove. A hot cherry glowing red stove doesn't mean it's burning good. It's actually bad. It's too hot and it's burning too out of control. So learn what your stove wants to do, learn the wood you're burning, stay safe, and I hope this video was helpful. Let me know in the comment section what you guys think, and peace out. I'll see you in the next one.